Oh, it's just strict. With these filters that are buried somewhere. Agree. It was a spot.
Yeah.
It's a hard decision, I know.
Well, it's like 10 more people.
I know.
That's how I like the organization. Yes.
Welcome one and all to the April installment of UIDRB. Hopefully you're in the right place. Swear in city staff to start. You swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. Stephanie Hensler, Planning Division.
Thank you very much. We have so many things to do. I'm going to be out of order what we'd like to do next. Last month's.
So you want to just, let's go through this. So next business meeting, if needed, is Thursday, May 9th at noon here. The next hearing is Thursday, May 23rd here at 4 p.m. Sworn staff, check. Let me call the roll to make sure we have a quorum. Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Ms. Gunzelman,
Yes.
Mr. Reeds,
Yes.
Mr. Sublette,
Yes.
Mr. Smansky,
Yes.
and Mr. Mather.
Yes.
We do have a quorum, so we're good to go there. Next is overview of hearing format. So just for our folks in the audience, if you haven't been here, first for each of the cases, city staff will make a presentation and read our staff report. Then we will bring up our applicants and swear them in and ask if they have any additional items to add to what the staff presented. Then if we have any public speakers wanting to talk on the case, they'll be given 3 minutes each. We do have speaker slips in under the TV in the back. If you are here as a member of the public wanting to speak on a case, please fill one of those out. And when we get to that point, just bring that up to me. And then we will have you step up to the podium and do your 3 minutes. And then after that, the board will be opened up for them to ask any questions of the applicant, discuss, and then if applicable, take action on any of the cases. So that's that. And then the next thing would be public forum. I don't believe we have anyone from the public here to talk about non-agenda items. Okay, and then, so yes, we'll do minutes first, and then staff approval list, and then oath of office. So, minutes.
Do I have a motion for, well, first off, did everyone have a chance to review the minutes from last month's meeting?
Yes.
No changes or revisions? Do I have a motion?
I move to approve.
I'll second.
That was a motion by Ms. Gunzelman, seconded by Mr. Sublette. Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Ms. Gunzelman,
Yes.
Mr. Reeds,
Abstained?
Mr. Sublette,
Yes.
Mr. Smansky,
Yes.
and Mr. Mather.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next is the common staff approval list. So just an intro to that. If you recall, in January, we typically, revise and approve the staff approval list. We did not do that this year because the division has been working on a common staff approval list that will be the same across UIDRB, downtown, and East Franklinton, just to provide some consistency and efficiency for applicants that are working across the city. So that was attached to the agenda, the draft for that. We would just ask that you all take a vote to hopefully approve that. And this will be our new staff approval list that will be on the website. And if you have any questions, I can try to answer them, or we have Belkis here who worked on the team to put this together.
So do you want to vote on it today?
Yes, please.
Okay. Has everyone had a chance to review the website?
My only question was on landscaping and hardscaping. Like it just says all landscaping and hardscaping is staff approvable. Is that?
Do you guys all have a copy of this?
Yeah, I don't like the sound of that.
Here you
I mean, most of the other ones seem, the 80, like the things that were typical use, and I didn't quite understand what it meant by all landscaping.
go. Okay. Yes, you want to speak to that? Overall, so I have the one that we have right now up here, if there are any questions, but we went from 22 items to 25 items. 21 of the items on this list rolled over into the new list. 1 was deleted, then we had 11 new, and then 4 things remained unchanged.
What that, because that's a landscaping.
It just says landscaping.
Happy to speak to it.
Should I be sworn in?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I don't know who you are.
I do. I am Belkis. Hi, I think I know all of you. Daniel, if you're new, but I'm Belkis Schoenhaus. I'm a principal planner in the planning division. And like Stephanie said, we've been working on this for about a year, looking holistically across all of our boards and commissions. Oh, thanks, Katie. To see where we can find efficiencies, commonalities, so it's more efficient for you and then also the public in doing staff approvals. But yeah, so for all landscaping and hardscaping, that was just more of an update, so we can already do that. If landscaping is a part of a larger development proposal, that would still go before you all. It's more so like, I'm AEP and I have a little maintenance utility box and I want to add a bush in front of it. That's something we could, review and approve. We added the word hardscaping because sometimes folks got confused and they didn't understand that landscaping typically includes hardscape, like pavers, things like that. So those are things, so that's why we clarified that language, but it's just small individual things versus something that's a part of a larger development proposal that would still go before y'all, so.
I was satisfied with that.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Well, I'd appreciate approval and your support.
Motion to approve as submitted or
Presented.
presented.
I will second.
That was a motion by Mr. Samansky, seconded by Mr. Reed. Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Ms. Gunzelman,
Yes.
Mr. Reeds.
Yes.
Mr. Sublette,
Yes.
Mr. Samansky,
Yes.
and Mr. Mather.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all. It's great to see you.
Thank
you.
All right, and then next we need to do our Commissioner Pledge of Ethics Oath of Office for Mr. Fleming and Mr. Mather, who were not with us. We did this as a group activity.
Wow. Really makes it sound compelling.
That's pretty, no? And then our representative from the city attorney. Our representative from the city attorney will step up and walk you through it.
I'll approach. Good afternoon, everyone. As you may remember, we did this a couple months ago, I would think, and it was rather long and arduous. Thankfully, since I advised this board of their ethical duties, we do not have to do the entire oath again. For the two commissioners that still have to do the oath of office and pledge of ethics, I can notarize it to save you the trouble of having to read it out loud. Generally, as city board and commission members, you are subject to following the Columbus ethics laws as well as Columbus City Code. Obviously, the big ones there are you cannot take compensation for your work here as a board member. There are other ethics laws. If you have any questions about those, always feel free to reach out to staff or the city attorney's office. In front of you, you have that piece of paper. Once you get to where you need to sign it, I will notarize or have you do a quick affidavit here, basically asking if you solemnly swear and affirm that you will follow the oath of office and you abide by the document that you're about to sign. All I need for you is an affirmative yes or no, negative. Hopefully that's not the case. So just let me know after you fill that form out. I think the first box will be your name, and then the second one will be the University Impact District Review Board. And then once you get to that bottom line, just let me know and I will administer it for you. What will happen is that the form will be filed with the city clerk's office and on file if you have any questions or if you'd like a copy of it, basically.
Ready whenever you are.
Okay. Okay. I'll have you raise your right hand for me. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to abide by the oath of office and pledge of ethical conduct as detailed in the document before you?
Yes.
Go ahead and sign it. And then I will have you just pass it to Stephanie and I'll notarize it in the hallway. And if you have any questions, like I said, feel free to reach out to the city attorney's office. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
You ready to roll?
Onward. Onward, regularly scheduled programming.
Then we'll start out with UID 2403-007, 314 King Avenue.
All right, so just a couple notes on this one. I realized that the staff report says that it is a request for action. This did come before the board last month and was continued. Upon receipt of the revised materials, bumped into a conceptual review, just so you all could review the materials I submitted and to see if they're sufficient. So let's see, so UID 2403-007, the applicant is requesting a conceptual review on the exterior building alterations that would result in the enclosure of the second-story porch. The submission includes existing condition photos, site plan elevations, material specifications, and inspirational image. Scroll through those quickly. So here are the revised drawings. Or the side elevations, and then this would be the rear elevation. And then they showed an image of what that would look like once enclosed. And here is our existing condition photo. These are the photos that were photos and drawings that were a part of the submission last month. The site plan here. And then those photos of what the materials look like. So after review, this proposal did appear before the board at the March UIDRB hearing. At that time, the board was generally supportive in concept, but continued the application, requesting that the applicant provide more detailed technical drawings. Upon review, the updated proposal remains generally inconsistent with plan recommendations. University District Plan recommends that character defining and original feature be maintained. The proposal would substantially alter that second-story porch element, which, while on the rear of the home, is visible from Pennsylvania Avenue. Staff encourages the board to discuss the revised submission with the applicant and provide further clarification into the level of detail expected on the drawings and on which elements of the historic fabric were recommended for reuse, i.e. the railings, columns, brackets, etc. Staff does not have a recommendation at this time, as this has been changed to a conceptual review. Thank you.
Is the applicant present? Come on up. I do, you can sit, that's fine.
Sit, okay.
Yeah. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Is there anything you'd like to add to the city's
Uh,
overview?
no, so as you can see by the pictures, we are literally mimicking what the first story is. It's going to be the same, it's the exact same width. It's only 6 feet out. So there is a small roof on the first story. This was a complete overhaul from the first time. We did this a number of years ago. We've came in front of this board and that was conceptually approved then. We are just matching, we are filling in and matching what is there, but the posts will stay like they are now. They are going to be aesthetically same. We will be putting our post into, it is a engineered building. So everything's engineered to withstand any structural weight. As the bottom, it's like page 7. It's all engineered stamped, or excuse me, sorry. Yeah, those are all our parts and pieces. They're all manufactured. So nothing is wood-based, this is all aluminum-based and vinyl-based. As you can see by the pictures that are current from the building that it is now, that if she zooms into the bottom of that is all vinyl-based material. The posts are cut in half and secured to our posts to make it aesthetically pleasing. The railing currently is, in lack of better terms, in shambles, is rotting out. They want to replace that. We feel like this is definitely a upgrade to what they have currently. Nothing structurally will be done. The roof will stay the same. Gutters will stay the same. We are just filling in the 3 sides. They love the bottom section. It looks very, very good, clean. The colors, we want to match that exactly. We're going to be taking those off very carefully and doing the same thing we did on the bottom, where we take it into a millwork shop. They will cut those down so we can secure those to our posts to keep the same aesthetic as they have currently.
Questions? Comments?
I think the biggest question at hand as to why it was moved back to conceptual was the technical detail on the drawings. If this is sufficient to take action. And then also clarifying, I know in the last meeting, there was some discussion about whether like this part of it would be glass or if either like the railing would be applied or if it would be solid. So I just want to make sure that we're giving them the feedback that they need to get this to a point where action can be taken on it.
So could I still speak? Oh, okay, sorry.
No, go ahead.
The railing itself will need to be removed, but it will not be able to, it will shrink the space so much that it will be pretty much non-usable. Our track system is about 6 inches wide, and by the time you add a new railing, you're bringing it in almost a foot. So you're talking like a 60 square foot space, which will be a chair, pretty much. The technical aspect, as far as we've done a lot of these across Central Ohio, and we've done tons with City of Columbus. They love our drawings because we give them to them, and there's a stamp of seal from our engineer, from our manufacturer, and they don't have to worry about being structurally sound. We just have to make sure we install it correctly, obviously. But everything is kind of off of their plate for as far as that structural members, I guess you would say.
So I wasn't here last month, so I got to catch up. This is conditioned space.
So it's a porch. It's just filling that.
It's still going to be a porch.
Yes. It's just going to be
Enclosed porch.
It's
It's
closed.
essentially conditioned space. The
Preseason.
Okay.
homeowner came here, as he said, a number of years ago, pre-pandemic, and they enclosed the first floor. So, it was a standard 2-story porch, and they put essentially other, I guess, sunroom components on the lower level. And so now they want to just do this. I mean, I don't know. The quality of the drawings are not great. I guess my take on it is, given that this is a homeowner working on a rather modest budget, I'm guessing, I'm willing to let it slide. I think there's enough intent that I accept I'm willing to take action, I guess, on the application. But they did the bottom portion, it's there, you can see what's going to turn out. Clearly, the document still. Per typical standard for application documents, but I guess given the nature of the particular applicant, I'm willing to let it slide in this case.
I think that it's hard for us to say this changes the character of the home when the first floor is already close. So we're really just adding on to the character of the home, in my opinion. I don't see anything wrong with this application.
I really second Keely's point.
So we would need to, I think we would just, if someone is comfortable making a motion on it, then we would just take it from a conceptual review, moving it to action, and then do a normal
So you need a motion to move it to action.
to an action item, basically.
I move to take the application and move it from conceptual review to a request for action.
Okay.
I'll second Keely's point again.
Okay, so that was the motion to move the application from conceptual to for action by Mr. Fleming, seconded by Mr. Sublette. Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Ms. Gunzelman,
Yes.
Mr. Reeds,
Yes.
Mr. Sublette,
Yes.
Mr. Samansky,
Yes.
and Mr. Mather.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. So then we would need a motion to take action on the now actionable items.
I move to approve the application as submitted.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, that was a motion to approve by Mr. Fleming, seconded by Mr. Mather. Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Ms. Gunzelman,
Yes.
Mr. Reeds.
Yes.
Mr. Sublette,
Yes.
Mr. Samansky,
Yes.
and Mr. Mather.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any relationship that comes with that.
I'm gonna recuse myself.
I think you should push it up. So we can.
Yeah, really, make an impression. Moving swiftly to UID 24-04-005, 2060 North High Street.
Thank you. UID 240405 is a conceptual application. The applicant is requesting conceptual review of a proposed exterior alterations and landscaping to the courtyard area of the Ohio Theater Mall. The proposal includes selective demolition of portions of the building and existing courtyard to accommodate the new design. The submission includes existing condition photos as well as demolition plans, proposed site plan, floor plans, perspectives, material information, and a landscaping plan. I will go through those quickly. Here are some existing condition photos of the area we're talking about. Here is a site plan, should it so choose to load. No. Well, this is high and this is lower, so it's on the corner here. And this is the lower level of that space. Here's the demolition plan. Demolition plan of the upper level. So I'll just tell you. So this is the isometric of how it looks today. And then this is the proposed lower level floor plan. And the proposed upper level floor plan. And the proposed isometric for how it look. So just proposal existing. And then we have some renderings here of the proposal. There's some in the lower level, and then here we have the materials that they are proposing lending. While this loads, I'll keep going through the staff report. So upon review, the proposal is generally consistent with plan recommendations. The University District Plan recommends enhancing unique design characteristics of the district and that developments should include plazas and courtyards. However, the plan also recommends encouraging diversity through design and states that blank walls should not be presented to the street. As such, staff encourages the applicant to provide enhanced accessibility features for the courtyard, as well as include public art along the Woodruff Avenue wall. Further, the drawings notate locations for future signage, but details have not been included in this submission. Staff encourages the applicant to review the plan guidance and code requirements for graphics in developing a graphics plan for the site. A lighting plan was also not provided at this time. Staff does not have a recommendation as this is a conceptual review. Thank you.
I have a question about the blank wall along Woodruff.
Yes.
Is that the south wall of Duncan that's being referred to?
Yes. This entire space.
Okay.
Is the applicant here? Well, hello. I need to swear you in. You swear affirm and tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Very good. Do you have anything you'd like to add to the city overview of the project?
I think, actually, if you can go back to like the start of the existing photos, obviously if you're familiar with this site, but it's obviously in a bit of disrepair and I think the overall goal is to, get it up to a lot more active level and really engage the street and the existing lower level. So it fronts the 200 unit apartment that, I guess at one time, this, just a little historic context, it was a hotel and this was the area that we're renovating was actually a pool at one point. So that's little history on that, but really want to create this community public space. But then this is street access to the lower level, which there's actually about 30,000 square feet of retail down there, different offices, restaurant, different uses down there. And to really, the goal is to really activate that, entry into that space, which is on a lower level. And there is a elevator in the lobby of that building. So it does provide the accessible access. And then as I mentioned, we're removing that 2-story element and then that single-story element to really open up that lower level to that mall down the left. And then the design space itself, I think on 2.01, or in the renderings, I'm gonna let Skylar explain a little bit more on the design of that space and some of the elements.
Yeah, so as of right now, the space that exists is kind of just circulation into like the lower level and upper level. So we wanted to either improve or add new access points into the residential and commercial components of the Ohio Stater, while also creating like a space that people would want to hang out in as well and mesh together. So on High Street, we created a new access point into that upper level that you can see. We also wanted to ask you guys about adding the like numbers to that wall, just because people sometimes don't know where that lower space is, and we just wanted to add like the address there as well. And then we're just like renovating the other stairs to like the Duncan and the upper part of the Ohio Stater. And then we are getting rid of the current stairs that lead down into that courtyard, but we think we're improving them and we're adding some seating along with it, but they kind of go at the same angle as they did before.
And also adding some landscaping, some trees, some different plantings in there, that will be, drought tolerant and heavy traffic tolerant, for what activity is going to be in there. The plan is to design in irrigation for those elements, so gives them a good chance of survival. And materials, durability being, main thing, a composite wood would be utilized. And so the different grasses and concrete, other elements, I think we have those called out on the last page there. So I think that the goal of this is, obviously being conceptual, just to get some feedback initially, like Stephanie mentioned that the signage, we're still, well, obviously do what's code compliant with the signage, but wanted to get the commission's feedback on the overall project, but then any other ideas you may have for really activating and engaging this corner.
And I guess one of the things we also had to do was there was a new sump pump that was added as well.
There was a what? Sorry.
There was a sump pump
that was recently added as well. You can see it in the plan. And that was just one of the things that we've changed recently. You can see it in the photos. It's covered by like a wood shed, but we plan to put like a tall planter over top of it with access under that exterior closet area.
So there have been a lot of repairs to the lower level of
There was some
parking.
flooding.
There were some flooding issues that they've taken care of, and part of that fix was to add this sump pump to remediate any water that does get down.
Yeah, they redid the whole deck about a year ago.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about your decking. I'm not familiar with that product. Did you consider using like a wood, like eBay or something? I don't think it's a cost consider because it's good stuff. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely a consideration. I think that we considered the composite just from an overall durability, maintenance and
cost.
cost too, but I think, there is still a certain level of maintenance with the e-pay depending on if you want to, keep it, in its natural state.
Yeah,
oil
yeah, you want to let it
and
gray
clean
out if you want to keep it.
But we'll definitely, obviously durability and wear and appearance, is one of our, wanting to be something that's going to be.
How are you, I'm just curious, how are you detailing that? Because typically you'd have to, if it were eBay, I mean, they were originally made for roofs of buildings, so it's sitting on screw jacks. So how is this going to be? I'm just curious how this stuff's going to get through the decking, obviously, so.
Yeah, we'll work with, it wouldn't be exactly like how you do like on a roof deck, but some sort of system
Okay.
that would have it on some sort of support to allow, to properly use the product. I think and that would be something that once we do get further detailing into it, with a depressed slab and those kind of things to align everything.
I would encourage you to at least look at Bison.
Yeah,
products. I mean,
the nice risers.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, just for the eBay, I have no idea what this costs, but it's not as expensive as you might think. It's probably more expensive than PVC, but.
Sure. Yeah, I'm familiar with that product.
Last time your firm spec eBay on my projects, we got feed to this.
Got the axe.
Yeah. It's
I can just, we did like a wood paver and 8x, and it's on the Bison system, and it just was a, 12 by 12 or 24 by 24. I don't think that like the timber tech comes in that, so that's more of like a board system versus if you did it as a paper. It's either can work. We've used timber tech on a lot of.
Yeah.
You said that was 8th and high?
8th and high,
What product?
apartments.
Okay.
It's on a raised courtyard. Same thing as this with parking underneath.
Is that near the Kroger? Right.
It's literally at the corner of 8th and high. So the Kroger's at 7th and high. I guess.
silver one with the orange.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
I mean, I guess from my perspective, it looks good. It's a rough corner. I used to go to one of the restaurants down in the basement. Yeah, it's not a great entry sequence, and I feel for the retail businesses down there because it's not a lot to track them. But the solution looks good. I mean, you've removed the visual barriers that sort of separate you from High Street, and that it brings you in pretty nicely. So I'm good.
So can you go to the lower level rendering, Scott, please? So on the right image, is that a proposed tree that's in that?
Correct.
It is.
Yes.
So that's in the wood deck area, right?
Correct. Yeah, so that would be something that we obviously further detail out
Okay.
and coordinate with that.
I don't really specify plants anymore, so I apologize for my lack of remembering scientific names. Is that a Japanese maple? Okay. They grow really, really, really slow.
Yeah, and I think
And I'm concerned that I mean, they're beautiful, but it could be damaged. I mean, they branch really low and they're really expensive, and somebody could just go by and, kind of grab it right.
Do you have?
I would consider something else.
Okay.
Something with thorns.
Stay away from me.
It's welcoming.
I agree with Kieran's comments that I think it opens up everything very nicely and provides better access to the spaces below. My only question is, well, two questions. The mesh fencing that's visible there in the upper right of the right-hand photo, seems like a strange one-off. I'm not opposed to it. I'm just curious what the thought process is.
I think it was just trying to reduce the heaviness of that wall above. Just so it wasn't, we're still determining if that's gonna be concrete or
A
stucco.
little less concrete.
Yeah, just so it's not so heavy, just a little bit of openness and penetration. Is it something that you would want to see more of that? like in front of Duncan or what?
No, I mean,
Or different application?
don't care,
Okay,
don't care. I was just curious.
sure. I think it was just to reduce some of the heaviness of that band across that top.
Yeah,
I think
that's
that's
okay.
okay.
I would have expected wood, but I didn't.
The whole problem with that area is just the visual barriers going down and up. So whether it's the red mesh fence or something, but to sort of reduce the opacity of the guardrails seems like a good idea.
And then the second question is, there's a staff had comment about providing a mural on that wall of Duncan.
And that's along the Woodruff side of Duncan?
Yeah, we were talking about, kind of renovating the Duncan and making it more modern, like some of the other ones around, but that's like a discussion
Yeah, so I don't know,
with the tenant.
any of you are familiar with the one in Clintonville? There's a Duncan in further north on High Street up in Clintonville that they've recently, I think, renovated a bank.
Oh, yeah,
That's a little bit more of a modern.
the one that the Flynville communities.
Correct, yeah, it's got some interesting feedback. And then there was a tree issue there that they cut down trees and they didn't know they were, so they had to replace them. And then I just saw online that two of the 4 trees have already been ran into and destroyed. So it's good to comment with about the Japanese maple. We definitely want to pick something that's hardy and durable. But I think that as part of this project, it's not part of that because that's, working with the franchisee and the owner and corporate and all those things. But the goal would be to ultimately get some updates to that Duncan, which could, so we'd have to see how a mural on that side would play into that.
I think my interpretation of the comment is that city would like to see public art in that location.
Sure.
And that's it. No need to renovate the building or anything, just
Yeah.
consider.
Sounds good.
I have a question. Do you envision on the lower decking, are there any kind of special events, like it's a pop-up, I wouldn't say concert, but I mean, you had small music. And the reason I ask, and I'm not suggesting you change it, but did you consider leaving all of your kind of landscaping off to the right side, and then you've got a combination of normal 6-inch riser stairs, and you've got the kind of amphitheater seating, and they're butt one another, so you just leave the whole middle of it open for circulation, and you push everything else just to one side. Just to leave the whole, I'm not saying it's bad or odd, but it's being busted up by this kind of landscaping in the middle, so you've got one kind of circulation on the.
I think it
Or
was
maybe-
kind of a buffer between the two, but I think, we also discussed putting like wood, seating within the grassy area. We would just have to make sure that there would be ways to get to there from each of the side or from down below.
Do you anticipate events?
Uh-huh.
I think that there could be potential for, I mean, it wasn't planned as an event space and there could be impromptu events that happen there, we ought to, but I think that not initially, but I think that, I think the space would allow for that, it could be
Is the seating on the
pop-up
lower
things
decking, is it movable or is it fixed?
on the,
On the lower,
the seating.
yeah,
We're showing it as loose.
okay, yeah.
I mean, it could be something that could be.
Oh, no, I'm not suggesting, I'm just saying if it wants to be movable, that space wants to be flexible, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, obviously, work with the owner to, with the lighting and potentially music being pumped in there to deter, any unwanted loitering or other things that, happen in spaces like this, but we'll definitely work with,
Yeah, I mean, that's right.
proven things that
I think
deter
it's
those
like
things.
Sort of providing that seating, there's a part of me that's like, I like how you're opening it up. We could see that more as landscaping and not providing wood bench places where people can sleep and so I think that's an issue that you would have to deal with, so I'm not feeling that strongly, but I wouldn't be against if it was no seating on that way down and it opened up more, it was more landscaping, less of seating area.
I mean, I don't know, I feel like The whole problem with that thing is it's hard to get down, like no one goes there. I mean, you're really gonna be motivated to go down there. So I feel like kind of want it to be more welcoming and accessible, like to give those businesses a chance.
Yeah, I think it's a balance. It's a balance of creating that open and invitingness, but not so inviting that
I mean, it's also,
sleeping over.
it's also.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see those stairs being bigger and that area shrinking, and so there's not,
Sure.
I just look at what happens with most benches and even at Eighth and High, we get a
Yeah,
lot of loiters. If you,
but I mean, you're right across the university, so I mean, if someone wants to loiter, there's plenty of places.
Yeah, I think from a design standpoint, we'll do everything we can to not encourage those type of things, I think.
Recognizing there's only so much that you.
Correct.
Yeah.
We're not gonna put spikes on the benches.
but I mean, I think opening it up like that is the right answer.
Yeah, I think
Not
and
suggesting
keeping it
it's
well
not
lit,
landscaping
Yeah.
or anything, but
keeping it well lit at night, I think will
Yeah.
deter those things, potentially what type of music being pumped in. I think that just having activity there and keeping it clean and upkept will help deter those things.
Which, directionally, so on the, can you go back to the plan? I'm just, which way's north on this thing? I should know, but.
for that square.
It's on the southeast corner. So
Okay,
that's High Street.
okay, so north is to the left.
Correct. Yes, north is to the left and then it's Walnut going, or Woodruff going down there.
I mean, the reason I asked is because, on sheet, well, whatever, page 9, 13, let's see, it's 2.03. You've got another of the Japanese maples and it's, for the people, this is a long-term play, you know, maybe that wants to be a shade tree. I mean, it's a larger
shade tree.
it's gonna be hot.
Makes sense. You're saying the one up on High Street level?
Yeah.
The honeylands, they have thorns.
So no Japanese.
I mean, I think they're beautiful. I would never specify one in a commercial setting like this. I just wouldn't do it.
I agree.
Okay.
Laugh.
Yeah, definitely looking at something durable and hardy. And I think being new, since we are reworking the area, we could potentially get into the, largest caliper, that's feasible in the size and form we're putting it in.
Yeah. You got a big planting area up there as well, so.
Are you ready for motion?
It's concept.
Yeah, and I think the goal is, we'll take these comments, and the goal of next month be for approval. So if there's anything, any definite things, like I said, we'll take these all into consideration and see how we can do that. But are there any things that you would definitely like to see as part of the approval or?
I mean, for my standpoint, it looks pretty good. I think the usual requirements for approval in terms of a reasonable level of detail to
Sure.
assess the quality of the construction materials in detail. Don't use the previous applicant as an example. But no, it looks pretty good.
And we would need the details on the lighting to do a full approval. Lighting and landscaping, but we would not need the signage to be completely figured out. That's separate.
So we're okay with just showing the dashed areas of intent, or that's okay to show? Okay.
Anything else on this one?
Very good.
Thank you.
Go. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good seeing you, Scott.
You too.
Which takes us to, if I'm not mistaken, UID 24-03-0 A and B.
Yeah, that's a typo, sorry. Oh, 10 A and B
I will grab your word.
on the agenda, yeah, on the staff report. Yeah. Okay, so Lori will be back and Ryan is recusing himself. We do have a speaker slip for this one, so
We have what?
we have a speaker slip for this one. So I will do my spiel and then we can let the applicant do their spiel and then we will call their speaker.
Okay.
This is what, 102 East 60.
No, this is
Oh.
the,
Yeah.
yeah, go.
Nice.
Yep.
Some people can.
We have had a couple more folks trickle in. If anyone for the remaining cases is a member of the public wanting to speak, we have speaker slips under the TV in the back. You could fill one of those out and bring them up. That would be greatly appreciated. Right, Lori is back. So this one is UID 2403010 A and B. So they are, the applicant is requesting a conceptual review on a proposed new residential building and then a recommendation for the associated variances. So this is a two-parter, part of it's conceptual, part of it is for action. You will see that there was some amendments to this as opposed to what I originally sent out. So I tried to just highlight the changes in red in the staff report that we have before us. Yeah, the materials here. Okay. So this project includes a new 13-story, approximately 157.5-foot residential building with 450 beds across 183 units. In the previous iteration of this, it was 557 beds across 177 units. They are proposing 0 on-site vehicle parking spaces, 8 bicycle racks, and then this does include the demolition of 3 potentially contributing structures, which include a 2-story brick mixed-use structure, 1920 building with a 1980 addition on the rear. That's the building at the corner of 9th and High. And there is a single-story commercial structure that was built in 1915 that was heavily modified in 69. And then a commercial structure that was built in 1943 and heavily modified in 73. The proposal does require the following variances. I'm going to read them verbatim from the applicant. So they need a use variance. So a variance request from provisions of section 335603 C4 permitted uses and 335605C C4 district development limitations to permit dwelling units in the C4 commercial district and dwelling units not located above uses contained in the C1, C2, and C3 commercial districts and those specified in the C4 commercial district. They also need a height variance. So a variance request from provisions of section 3325.323 to permit a building height of 157.5 feet. And then they also need a parking variance. A variance request from provisions of 3312.49C required parking to permit 0 parking spaces. The submission includes conceptual massing diagrams, site plan, floor plan, a partial building section, contextual and inspirational images, as well as preliminary renderings. We'll go through these updated materials here. Here are some images of other mass timber buildings and some information about Harbor Bay. There's some information about mass timber as a building material. And then here is the site-specific information. So we're talking about the corner of 9th and High here. Here is just site context showing the proposed building and then other buildings in the area and their height. It's just showing the zoning. So these 4 parcels here are currently C4, which is a 35-foot height district.
Remind me, what's the district to the west? It's AR something. What's the height?
I think it's also 35.
Okay.
I can pull up the map though. And then, so here's just some site context showing, the existing buildings on site. Here are some contextual images of the buildings in the area. And then here's the proposed massing. And these have been revised since you last saw them at 15 stories. Here's some of those inspirational images of mass timber buildings. Design concepts. And here we have our site plan. You will notice an additional townhome has been added along 9th. And they're starting to show, was discussed last time, some of the programming of that first floor space since they would not be providing commercial. So you can see a grand stair here, things like that. And then out. And here's that first floor. And then the second level would be resident amenities in the internal courtyard. Third floor showing just a typical unit plan. Here's that building section. And then here are just some of the renderings of the design. This would be the, oops, sorry. This is the view from across High Street. And then this is from a little further north, so this would be the 9th Avenue side. Then we get into the more technical drawings that just have the variances listed. Show the height. And then here's just that statement of hardship that goes along with the variance requests. So upon review, this application was heard by the UIDRB at the March 2024 hearing. At that time, the board was generally supportive of the proposed variances, but requested further development of the design before being comfortable making a recommendation. The board also requested more detail on how the ground floor will be programmed. The University District Plan recommends regional mixed use on the site, which can include residential, as well as adaptive reuse and or expansion of contributing buildings, a minimum FAR of 1, max height of 72 feet, and parking at 0.37 spaces per bed for residential uses. The proposal is somewhat consistent with these recommendations. As such, the applicant is requesting variances for height and parking in addition to the inclusion of ground floor residential. Planning supports the use and district limitation variances, but requests that the proposal incorporate an element of preservation as recommended by the plan and high quality site and building design to minimize the impact on the surrounding properties. Staff notes that under the draft updated zoning code, the requested variances may not be necessary. The parking and use variances would be eliminated, and the applicant could potentially be granted the affordability height bonus that would allow them to build up to 16 stories on site. This is totally just an FYI for you, since the draft code is out.
Yeah, that's a good, because I've looked at that actually. Just clarifying that point, in the draft code, no, they can do residential on the ground floor, there's no commercial requirement.
Correct.
Okay.
So the plan's design guidelines recommend preservation and rehabilitation of existing buildings, and that High Street continue as a mixed-use corridor with the densest development. Planning requests that the potentially contributing building, one is from 1920 at the corner there of 9th and High, be preserved, incorporated, or otherwise included in the overall design. If the aforementioned is not feasible, staff requests that the applicant complete a HABs light report in coordination with the planning division prior to demolition of the building. Furthermore, the plan recommends that new construction utilize high-quality materials, building articulation, and a high level of transparency on the first floor, street trees, art, and lighting that minimizes light spillage. Lastly, the plan calls for a building's height and mass to be mitigated through the use of setbacks, quality architecture, and materials. Minimal information on design and materiality have been provided at this time to evaluate consistency with these plan design recommendations. As the design progresses, planning recommends the building be dynamically massed and articulated, including a step back along the rear alley frontage above the 3rd story, landscaping, pedestrian amenities, and art murals on any blank walls. Planning is supportive of the townhome units along East 9th Avenue. As far as the request, planning recommends supporting the variances, but does not have a recommendation on the design as it's conceptual at this time. Thank you.
Stephanie, just as the not quite representative, but link to the University Area Commission, this did receive UAC approval.
Thank you.
Or there was some disagreement within the UAC?
Well, if you're making reference to what I thought was some fairly distorted reporting in the dispatch
I see.
and unbalanced, actually having witnessed it, it was a perfectly normal discussion with none of the sort of duress that was suggested in the article, and that and the reporter chose to only speak to people who were opposed. Obviously, there was since it went through 2 different votes, more people were in support than opposed. I found the article to be unfortunate, but it was a perfectly normal discussion and really nothing nothing unusual about the passage.
Good to know.
I'm a little disappointed, honestly.
Sorry to upset the sense of was created in the article.
So now
We have speakers.
let's do the applicant, see if they have anything to add to mine, and then we'll do our speaker.
Okay.
Hello,
Good afternoon.
Steve Willoughby with Harbor Bay.
Amy Haney with DLR Group.
I do swear you in. You swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Very good.
Well, thank you very much.
Like to supplement the city's review.
Definitely would love to share a few comments on that.
Sure.
If we could go back to the site layout, that would be a great spot to start. That one would be great. If you could go up to the one more above that, that one right there. Yeah, that's a good spot to start. So just to provide some additional context, I know majority were here last time we presented this project, but this project started for us back in October. We had conversations with the neighborhood. So I know there's some discussion last time when we were here about the kind of the carrot and the stick and some discussion to that point. And we've been giving that a lot of thought, and there was a lot of discussion, but really what this was when we got here in October, we had our first public meeting. We walked into the room and we said, this is the site that we have. It includes 17 parcels. We could pursue a rezoning in multiple different ways. We could pursue a rezoning across the entire site. We could take those parcels from 35 and push up and possibly go 60 feet across the site. We could go up to 72 on high. There's a number of things that we could potentially do. And there's a lot of different ways that we could mass this. And at that time, there's about 10, 12 people in the room. We said, how do we collectively do that? And that was our first meeting. And we had a bunch of examples on the board, and we were whiteboarding what this project could look like. And there's some there's some comments, well, maybe you demolish these buildings near Wall Street, maybe you demolish some of those. And folks within the room were saying, well, we don't want to demolish any of these buildings. And it's like, okay, well, how do we park the building? Do we put a parking structure all the way behind the residential homes? Do we do something that incorporates and runs the entire length of the property that pushes westward and makes that work and so forth? And it's like, well, if you do that, then you're pushing westward into the neighborhood. Then you're blocking off those properties. And then if the neighborhood does transition in the future and there's an opportunity to convert it back into single family residence at some point, then you've taken away that opportunity. So we then had another meeting in November, and then, the conversations continued and so forth. And then we ultimately got to a point where we're being guided in regards to what this was. And the reason I say this is because since we've last met, we've went before the UAC zoning committee, and that was occurred actually 5 days after we were here in March. And there's a lot of conversation at that time. We got approval for 15 stories and some below grade parking. And there's a lot of good discussion at that time. It was 179 feet, 6 inches, and one level of below grade parking. And a lot of the comments we got at that time was it was still too tall. So as we were preparing to come back to the UAC for the first time, the full commission, we challenged DLR and we said, how can we do this? There's some concerns when we spoke last, how do we design the building? How do we get some additional articulation? There's concerns this board had in regards to height, and how do we begin to bring it down? So we challenged DLR and said, how do we accomplish that? Addressing the concerns that you've raised, and then the concerns that we had as zoning committee. So we challenged them to do that. And between that time at the zoning committee and then going before the UAC, we realized that we could lower the building from 179.6 to 157.6. And then we also encountered an issue with some on-site stormwater that required us to remove the basement. So that's where the amendment came that we submitted. So since that time, we've been able to reduce the building to where it stands now at 13 stories and so forth. And the reason I mention this is because it's important to us that the way we got to the building we got today, it wasn't just purely Harbor Bay and DLR, sitting in a room with our architects or ourselves saying, this is the most optimal massing. This is the building that we want. It really has been a building that's been designed by us and the UAC neighborhood to get to where we got. Is it everything that we want? No, it's not everything that we wanted. Is it everything the neighborhood wants? No, but it's really a solid compromise. Initially, we were pushing for retail on the first floor. But the neighborhood group said to us, you know what, there's a lot of vacant neighborhood retail already. There's also a lot of vacant properties, often referred to as pumpkin teeth, right? Where there's missing gaps within that. If you can do something to activate the street level with residents, and the concept about putting townhouses, along Ninth and then connecting those homes, which I think DLR did a solid job with, doing that. There's a chance to do that and really create that connectivity and get people flowing into the neighborhood. So I think we've been able to accomplish that. And I think it's been done through a real communal process. And from a design standpoint, I think we're on a good start. Our hope today is to get a recommendation to allow us to move forward with the council variance. The design, I know we have a lot more work to do with this board. It's definitely a conceptual design standpoint. From the developer's perspective, our intent is to get a lot of input from this board and then be in a position to move forward to council in regards to variance, to be in a position then to fully release DLR, to take the recommendations that they get from this board, and then to allow us to move into a full design package. So that's all I have, unless you have comments.
No, I just wanted to go back to the last agenda item because Carrie, you were the first person that I heard the word e-pay from 17 years ago. I just thought it was wild that it came up again. We were working on a project together in Westlake at Crocker Park when I was at Files. I just had to get that off my chest. It's like, oh my God, he's talking about e-pay. That was the first person that I heard that. But yeah. So that was a
full circle.
nice full circle moment for me.
Yeah.
And now we're working on a timber building.
Does it have e-pay?
It probably will have some e-pay at the ground floor, or a different kind of wood that can be exposed to the elements. Yeah, so I guess I'm trying to figure out what page to go on. It's probably 19 or 20 still, again. 20. Let's go to 20. So these are the images that we're using for the inspiration of the exteriors. We want to show as much timber as we can on the ground floor, and then get these views up into the second floor here. The top image, the one not on the left side, but the next one to the right, is another building that we've done in Austin, Texas, that has this exterior exposed balcony where you can see all of the timber in there, and it's indoor outdoor. And then the one bottom left there is another project in, I think that's in Minneapolis. But you can see that there are 2-story columns, a lot of glass, so that you get this indoor-outdoor interaction. You can see the timber and even reach out and touch it. We found that a very simple pattern facade seems to work best for cladding the timber structures. When you build out of timber, you really have to enclose it as fast as you can. So we have to come up with a panelized system that can be put in place coming up behind the structure, 2 stories at a time. So if you've got 2 stories of timber, you want to be no more than 2 stories behind with your panel system. So that's kind of why you'll see panelized systems on timber structures a lot. It's also very difficult to do a full step back in timber structure. They can't deal with transferring slabs that much. You have to take out the whole bay. So we deal with that with a lot of reveals and changing in colors, which is that bottom right image there, to the left a little bit more. So we'll do panels that are maybe offset 1 or 2 feet and change the colors between them.
And at this site in particular, on the Wall Street side, which is west, the western alley, we are setting back the building a full 12 feet. So it's not right up against that alley side. The building to the south is actually, I think, right up to the property line. So we're trying to pull back as much as we can in this building and still get the density that we need, and working with this panelized system and reveals and the mixture of glass and solid to get to where we need to start to articulate this facade. On the ground floor, we totally took all of the comments to heart about activating the street level, including enough space on that corner there for pedestrians to cross the street and be safe and pull back and have a better view corridor. Right now, that building, I think, sits right up on the lot line, and it's a very skinny sidewalk. So we're pulling that back about 20 feet, so that there's actually a landing zone. And then you're looking now at the townhouses that are going down 9th, which we're trying to match the brick color at minimum of that brick building that's on the corner. I think that Harbor Bay can talk more about this, but we're trying to preserve some of that brick and work it into a knee wall or panel on those townhouse levels. And we're definitely trying to work in lintels and brick detailing that is reflective of not only the buildings on High, but of the brick houses that are down the street on 9th.
In addition to the HAPS report, as
Yeah.
recommended to the city, so we'll definitely do that. But as stated, we're looking to reclaim the brick if possible, based on the condition of it. And then we would love to incorporate it into the facade of the townhouses. We think that would be a great touch to do that along that side. But I do want to be clear, it would be positioned, back. It wouldn't be on the corner the way it is currently. We think the setback, create a better line of sight as well, and then allow us to expose the mass timber as well.
Yeah, that the setback and the additional sidewalk space was also requested by the engineering plan reviewers, and the staff in those departments. And I think we're coming to a good conclusion with that. We just did our traffic and pedestrian study for that corner. And it would be up to them, I think, whether or not they want to put a loading zone there and get back even more sidewalk. But the other images of the 9th Street houses all have, or a lot of them have a 2nd-story porch or at least a front porch. So that is what we're trying to do along High Street. On that 2nd story, we are offering an outdoor courtyard on the front and back. So there would be that 2nd story where residents could go out and have coffee and meet with their friends and overlook High Street, very similar to what other houses are doing around the corner. And then, as you can see in the ground floor plan, that space will be programmed with amenities. So we're labeling it as a leasing office, but it's really like an RA, like in a dorm. I mean, it's like your cruise director for your building. There will be students and residents and friends coming in and out of that all day long. The timber staircase looking out onto High will be very close to the glass, and will be clear glass. And then we've got a coffee bar and seating booths, even some study pods on that ground floor. So we imagine that being very well activated 24/7. It would never close and would always be available to the residents there. So we picture this as being even more active than possibly a commercial use on the ground. It would be used by students, by residents, as long as they're living there. The Wall Street side is where we're anticipating most of the deliveries and Ubers and Lyfts coming, as well as the bike kind of entrance for residents that are coming from the university or coming from the south. There is a separate entrance for that you can get into, and then you can for your pickup as well.
But from a standpoint, if there's questions that you'd like to address.
Kevin, before we start interacting, we want to have the.
Yes.
So now we need to break for a moment. I think we'll pick back up.
I'm just gonna, you guys are fine, I'm just gonna move the microphone to the podium for our public speakers.
Go ahead.
With the first, how many speakers do we have?
I only have the one speaker slip that I did.
William Wells. I do need to swear you in. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
My name is William. I live on High Street. I'm a resident of Columbus. I did speak publicly at the University Area Commission at the last neighborhood group meeting that this project was presented at. I spoke in support of this project. I think this is a really exciting building, would add a lot of vibrancy to High Street. I support the variances for height and I support the reduction in parking. This is certainly the way that the city is going to reduce the parking requirements, and it certainly makes sense for a student housing project. I wanted to make a comment publicly that I also made in the zoning meetings. I've been attending those across the last 6 months. This is sort of a general comment about zero parking. I've raised concerns at those meetings. It makes some assumptions about people that aren't always true. At a building of this scale and size, you might have somebody that's handicapped living in the building. You might have somebody visit the building that's handicapped over the life of the building. I think zero parking is a mistake for buildings of this size. I said that at the zoning meetings. I think a handicap parking space should be required for all buildings, not just picking on this applicant. For all buildings, when you get over 100 units, I think one handicap parking spot should be required. I think it's ethically the right thing to do. That's a comment I made at the zoning meetings and I made to city council members. I just want to repeat that here. But this building, I think, is a real gem. It's beautiful. The wood columns on High Street are absolutely stunning. This elevates the neighborhood. I'm excited to see it. The construction of this type of building is very fast and very clean versus a concrete and steel building where there's a lot of cutting and dust goes everywhere. These types of buildings they don't have them like that. Building is built off site and then it's shipped to the site and assembled in pieces. And it's very fast and very clean. So and there's less subcontractors that work on buildings like this. There's less cars in the area. It's very clean and very quiet. It's a great type of construction. I think this is a great, since it really elevates this, the neighborhood. And I think this is a project that we should support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, I think it's our turn to ask some questions.
Mine's a general one that I think is appropriate to start with. Having had the advantage of witnessing much of the planning process for this, I'm going to ask you, it's very natural to focus this afternoon on the tower. But I think if you can say a bit more about your commitment to the entire street, that was important in the process. And it's also part of the explanation for why the tower developed the way it did. So if you can say a little more about the north side of Ninth Avenue and your plans there. Briefly, so that everyone understands what's happening there. I'm not sure it's totally clear.
Just mean the townhouse units or where we
This
missed?
is beyond the townhouse units,
I mean, the neighborhood.
the neighborhood.
I don't see how, I mean, unless those properties are encumbered.
I was only asking for a brief bit of context in terms of.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, from a standpoint, so they're not included in the application, technically, because by parcel, right? We couldn't do that. But when we were talking through it and working at it, I understand your question. I did think about it from a perspective of what we're doing it. So when we were looking at the bed count and working through it in totality, from an application standpoint, looking at it and submitting it, you technically only look at it from the parcel itself. But from a standpoint of how we were approaching it, and when we were talking to the neighborhood groups and so on, we were collectively looking at it from the bed counts within the entire block. So as you would, say for instance, a mixed use neighborhood.
Yeah, but I mean, that only works if you're encumbering the property. I mean, I
completely
respect
I completely hear what you're saying, but
I respect the intention, but like, you're not.
Understood.
There's not a legal agreement here where you're gonna say that the properties west wall along Ninth are always gonna be encumbered as sort of, affordable units. Like, so like this stands on its own. I mean, I get that this is a nice selling point for the community but I guess my perspective is this is in front of us fundamentally a question of understanding the nature of the zoning code and the zoning for the site. And on the basis of that, do you have inclusionary housing within the tower?
No.
So to me, that issue becomes irrelevant because it's about the tower, the parcel. If you said, well, we don't, but we entered into an agreement with the city where we have committed to having inclusionary units on the parcels west of Wall Street. And we have an agreement in place. And so we're not putting any inclusionary units in the tower, but we're going to maintain in perpetuity inclusionary units on the properties west of Wall. I think that would be a solid legal argument. But I mean, this is just more like feel good. Like, yeah, you got a bunch of properties west of Wall along Ninth. They're small. You're not going to develop them. But there's nothing that prevents you in the future from changing the zoning, developing the site, or selling the parcels. So I guess my perspective is that is all great, but I'm not interested. It's about the parcel and what makes sense from a zoning standpoint.
So I didn't mean to suggest that I wanted an extended distraction from the issue, but I do think the context has some relevance, which we have now, so everyone understands a little better what's planned there. I mean, so I don't mean to dig a rabbit hole to get this discussion bogged down in.
I mean, I guess to me, I think Stephanie brought up the kind of interesting point, and your application is sort of timely as the city reevaluates the zoning code and the zone and sort of is in for public comment. And so you're in the urban core and you're allowed 12 stories, assuming the zoning code rework passes. You're allowed 12 stories by rights. You're not required to have commercial on the ground floor. If you want to go taller, you can include inclusionary housing and that'll get you 16. And so those, at the moment, those seem to be the parameters to me that make sense. The one you're probably zero parking, I'm fine with. The one you're probably not meeting is the setback requirements. I get the issue about transfers in mass timber construction. I'm not sure the construction type necessarily should get you out of that. So I don't know, it's sort of on the fence. I think 12 stories by rights, given where the city zoning is going, 0 parking spaces seems reasonable. I think I'd have to think about the setback.
Do you think that you could get to a point of design with reveals and changing of materials, and like how much are we talking about in a step back, and how does that work aesthetically on a skinny tower?
Yeah, I mean, that's tough. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, because what we decide also becomes a kind of precedent relative to the zoning code. And so with the zoning code in the works, do we want to be the ones that say, oh, hey, there's a zoning code. You know what? We don't care. So like, I suggest looking up the stuff for the area and seeing what you think. I guess I had 2 minor things. The panelized facade system, what are you thinking? What's the black or charcoal gray stuff?
So I think we are moving a little bit away to a lighter color, not such a dark black, and going more of a warm color to go with the brick and the timber. But it is mostly a metal panel on the exterior.
ACM.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then the other one, I guess I asked this mostly as a matter of curiosity. Are those really structural columns exposed at the ground floor, or are you cladding them?
Those ones are on the ground floor are timber, but the inside there is concrete as well.
Yeah.
The second story ones that you can see out there are timber. So it would be all the same wood.
Typically, you wouldn't want to take the woods, you wouldn't want to expose the wood structure for reasons you mentioned. So that makes sense. You've got a first floor concrete podium, and then you're building the timber structure above that.
So the ones that columns that we're talking about on the ground floor that are only serving the ground floor are actually, what does he call it? The micro CLT. So it's kind of like the formwork is timber itself and then it stays in. So it's not like plaid, it's actually perfect.
Oh, thanks.
I think it's a good move to move away from the darkness of the metal panel for the building in town named Encova Insurance Building. We'll take a look at that because this reminds me of that right now. I think as far as step backs, it would be really nice to get one. I'm not an expert in mass timber. I understand the whole losing of a bay and losing the floor. But maybe if you lost a floor on the west side, that would be something. At least it would break down the mass of the building. Because right now it's very boxy. And very massive. And then my other comment is I look forward to developments on the facade because right now, unfortunately, there's both too much going on and not enough going on.
Your turn.
All great comments. I'm actually excited about seeing something with mass timber going in. I appreciate, I was concerned about the commercial aspect, but not necessarily commercial, but just creating activity along the street. I'm totally sympathetic with empty retail and empty storefronts. So I appreciate that you actually took that to heart and looked at ways to implement some type of an active street facade. I think it's really important. I also appreciate the fact that you're showing renderings that place the building and show the existing street facade on 9th as well as across the street on High. So it kind of really does help us understand the context of the tower to what's adjacent to it. I'm okay about the metal panel. I am looking at the High Street facade. I like the energy that's being created on the lower level. I do feel it's a little relentless as you move up on the tower with the fenestration. I understand the punched openings. I'm not opposed to that. I do like the sort of sway effect that the articulation, your window fenestration is creating on the facade. What was interesting, I was looking at the sort of perspective view that you had. It almost looks like there's a wave going up the building. So I think that's really interesting. And so I'm really excited to see the development of that more. I'm okay with the parking. I think the zoning is really going to help you and benefit you. The setback is one of the situations that we're going to have to try and figure out. Not sure how you do that, but that's why you're there. Thank you.
I have another question. Can you speak more about losing the basement space and losing the parking that was included? To the speaker's point, I think it would be nice to have at least some parking appropriately in the building.
Yeah, that was a really good point. I wrote down, we can definitely fit, I think, a parking space on the site at least. But the basement, first of all, this site is very small. I think it's the narrowest parcel on High, which is another reason that setbacks are becoming difficult. And we're already setting back 10 to 12 feet, depending on where you are on that western edge. So we were really only fitting like 27 spaces if you don't count double parked. And then when we got more into the design of the lower level and we're talking to the city engineering about stormwater, we weren't able to get a variance to take it off site. So we're having to store stormwater on site and it had to be in the basement. So we were getting down to like only 10 spaces and very expensive to do that.
You could
So
store it on the roof.
No.
Have you tried any roof storage?
Yeah.
There's, it was because of the courtyard, and then as soon as we put it in the courtyard, then it would take up the courtyard and we have no out space.
So it's a cost issue. I mean, you couldn't do a basement level that for some measure of parking and then do a vault beneath that. I mean, I realize you're.
The vault, yeah, the vault would be too low. It would be below where it
You
needs to
get rid
be.
of the water.
Yeah.
You pump it out. That way.
Yeah.
And you understand the setback isn't like a side yard or front yard setback. It's set back with the
Yeah.
story of the building and then stuff.
Yeah, so that we're setting back the building
Yeah.
from that 10 to 12 feet But then as you go up the tower, what is in the code is impossible on this site. It's like 85 feet, I think, and that would just eliminate the whole building. It's only 120 feet wide, right?
Well,
So it's, yeah.
The new code proposes above 3 stories, 20 feet back from the property line, and then above 7 stories, 30 feet
Yeah.
back. I mean, it's still gonna cause you some trouble.
Yeah.
But it's not 80 feet.
Yeah.
And then I appreciate what you stated in regards to inclusionary and looking at it in its individual nature, but the reason it adds significance in regards to the totality of our discussion is because it ties into the economics of what we're talking about. Because when we look at it from its totality and from a pro forma, you can focus on everything that you're talking about, setting it back here, adjusting it here. Everything you're now talking about narrows down to one pro forma based on the application that's been submitted. So when we are looking at this in totality, we're talking about vacating Wall Street, making adjustments. So every time we had conversations with the neighborhood group and they said, okay, we want to preserve this home, we want to make this adjustment, we want to see a reduction in scale of the building and so forth, we would go back with our team, we would make adjustments. We want to preserve this naturally occurring, affordable housing. So we would go back and we'd make those adjustments. So that was the collaboration. I understand the legality of it, but when the conversation came up with in the last UAC meeting, the conversation came up about the legality of the issue, and the conversation rests on, well, if someone were to come after us and pursue the raising of those homes, as a community, to demolish or to remove those properties or to do anything with those homes, you have to go before the University Impact Design Review Board. You have to go before them to remove those. And that was the discussion that was had with the University Area Commission. What's that?
They don't. They can demo a site without.
Okay.
But I think that my point is there are good intentions, but there's nothing that constrains you in the future. So, kudos to the intentions, but I can't factor that in because there's nothing to say that, 5 or 10 years from now, you don't demo the houses, you don't redevelop the site, or you don't alternatively just sell parcels to someone else to do what they want. So I appreciate the good intentions. I would say to me, it just doesn't factor in. This is a discussion about what does the current zoning code allow, but more importantly, what is the proposed zoning code think is reasonable? So, you've got 12 stories by rights. I don't like no commercial on the ground floor, but that's where the zoning code is going, so fine. Zero parking, I'm good with, but I do think you need to think a little bit about how to address the setback issue.
You still have the agreement, as far as parking is concerned, you still have the agreement with the someone adjacent parking garage.
Yeah.
So as it relates to the commercial space, I guess independent of what the zoning may end up with, whether it's 6 months or a year, however long it's going to take to get the thing across the finish line. I personally like ground floor. I don't think the entire ground floor has to be, commercial, but given the increasing density of developments along High Street, I think while there may be vacancies today, as more projects like this come online, I think that there's less likelihood that there's going to be vacancy. So I don't know if there's any way in your building that some measure of the ground floor can be converted at some future date to commercial. I would certainly consider that because it may become really valuable to you 10 years down the road that they want to put a restaurant on the ground floor. So I would consider that. With respect to the parking, I'll never vote down a parking variance. I think it's on the developer. If you think you can get away with it, kudos to you. I think that's great. Having said that, I think the resident raised a very, very valid point. So I guess, what you may consider doing is putting a dedicated handicap parallel parking space on 9th is what I would probably, if you have no place to fit one on your site, then that's probably what I would do. And I'm curious, can you parallel park in front of this building on High Street? Is there parking in that section?
Right now you can't. It's across the street. The parking is on the other side. we are going through a study with the traffic department at the city, and they are looking at whether it makes sense to take out, so there's a merge lane right in front of the building at that corner. To take out that merge lane and make the merge happen further north. And then having a loading zone come in there.
A loading zone.
Yeah, we don't think we need it, but it's kind of gonna be the city's decision.
So if you
what
get back
happens
to the
in that.
plan stuff, the.
Well, I think
see
we
what appears
definitely
to
do
be
have room on the other side.
Curb is like, well, that's not the right, okay, go pan down to the south end of the site, then over to the right so we can see my street. No, it's not, it was another plan that, the curves were actually, the curb line was showing up, maybe it's that one.
It's the first level.
There we go.
Existing.
So are you saying that it appears there's a contour 967 there, so is the road moving over to the east in that?
That's what the city is taking a look at, pending the.
So it doesn't do that
results
now?
of the study.
Okay.
It doesn't, I mean, what you're looking at was the current condition, so the merge happens in front of the building. So it
Okay.
kind of goes to like, from 2 lanes to 1. But it's it's weird. But there's that left turn lane there, so they were talking about potentially taking out, and then there's 2 lanes next to that. So they're redoing the lanes here to try to get more sidewalk and move away from that merge lane.
Okay.
And then possibly put a loading zone on the other side of it.
Okay.
So they're still working through that. I mean, whatever they decide, I think is good with us. That's not our.
I'm just curious, dimensionally, back to the plan stuff, from the curb, from the back of the curb to the face of your building, what is that dimension plus or minus? Recognizing if the.
The south end, I think, is like 14 feet, and then we are proposing to add another 8 feet at the top, so because it does narrow down, so
Yeah.
I think there is maybe not a dimension there. So you have more than 20 feet where the crosswalk comes in.
So, can you go back to the perspective looking southwest stuff, please? I don't know which page it is. Going up, sorry. The below that one.
This one?
Yep. So at the southern, on the second floor, that's a public space for residents outside, kind of a balcony?
Yeah.
Did you consider, I mean, one thing they did on the building to the south that I think I've never been in the building, but they've got one that's on the top floor, on the corner of that building. And I think that's I think it looks great. And I think that you might consider, I think it adds something to the character of the building, also, just activity, so it's not. The other thing I'm curious about, if it has anything to do with the construction type, did you consider having any balconies or any outside space for the units?
Not per unit, but I think that if you add up the courtyard space, it's basically what it would be for a typical size unit. But yeah, it is difficult to do in timber. You have to kind of add metal onto it to make it happen.
It's very expensive very quickly.
Yeah.
Mass timber,
Yeah.
we've tried it on other
Yeah,
projects.
so we try to do it in public courtyards and rooftops if that's municipal as well. You have to build on top of it, basically.
I think obviously going forward, seeing renderings and elevations of the south elevation would be, that's the house.
Yes. We have, like Steve said, we've barely begun to get into design besides the comments that you've had to try to address them to get this zoning approved so that we can know that we can go to 13 stories or 15 stories and then work from there.
Very good. Any other comments? Any additional questions for us or no?
We have to vote on the variances, right?
Correct.
Yeah, do I have a motion? If we're willing to vote. If we're willing to vote?
Yeah, I mean, no, go ahead. The variances, okay, yeah.
So you could either, so they need action on the variances, so the action could be to recommend the variances, you could continue them again if there's need for further development of the design. And we do need some action on the variances.
I'll make a motion to recommend.
I'll second.
Do we need to do them individually? There's like 4 of them. Can we do them as a block?
We can do them all together.
Okay.
Just do them individually.
You,
I'm only asking, is it seems like we've done that in the past.
I mean,
We'll just name them, so that.
yeah, I mean, the only one that gives me pause is height, but not insofar as I think the height is a problem. It's just whether the massing needs to reflect something that's asked for in the zoning. I mean, but I mean, I guess the other way of doing that is that can turn up in the discussion of design. So if we want to. Yeah,
okay, so we have a motion to recommend the variances. I need a second.
I second.
Second. Thank you. So it was a motion by Mr. Sublette, seconded by Ms. Gunzelman. Mr. Fleming,
yes.
Ms. Gunzelman,
Yes.
Mr. Reeds.
Yes.
Mr. Sublette.
Yes.
Mr. Smansky is no longer with us for this case, and Mr. Mather.
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking forward to talking more about design for
Yeah.
sure. I'm very excited.
Thank you.
Thank you. Which takes us to UID 24-04-006.
Gotta wait for Ryan. Welcome back.
Yeah.
Okay, so UID 24-04-006 A and D, similar to the last one, we are conceptually discussing the design, but they are requesting action with variances. The applicant is seeking conceptual review for the design of a new residential building, in addition to a recommendation for the associated variances. The proposal includes the demolition of the church building on site, construction of a new 5-story, approximately 317-bed residential building with amenity spaces, terraces, covered entries, and first floor glazing, street trees, as well as parking on a portion of the first level. The variances requested are, I'm going to read them, there's 12 of them, bear with me. Section 3325.903B, landscape area treatment to reduce the landscaping area behind the most rear portion of the building from 5% of the lot area to 4%, and to remove 3 10-inch caliber trees without replacement on the parcel, but 11 street trees to be planted in the East 16th Avenue and Waldeck Avenue right of way. Number 2 is the section 3325.905A and B, maximum lot coverage to increase permitted lot coverage from 30% to 61%. Number 3, section 3325.907, parking to reduce the calculated parking spaces from 339 spaces to 96 spaces. Number 4, section 3325.909 A and B, building lines to reduce the calculated building setback lines from East 16th Avenue from 25 feet to 20 feet, and from Waldeck Avenue from 25 feet to 11 feet, based on adjacent buildings and as depicted on the site plan. Number 5, section 3325.911C, building separation and size, to increase the maximum building size from 10,200 square feet to 125,935 square feet plus or minus. Section 3325.913, maximum floor area ratio to increase the FAR from 0.8 to 2.29. Section 3325.915, height to permit a building height of 63 feet. Number 8 is section 3321.07B, landscaping to reduce tree plantings from 7 to 0 on site. But again, 11 street trees are to be planted in the East 16th Avenue and Waldeck Avenue right of way. Section 3333.23D, minimum side yard required to reduce minimum side yard from 10.5 feet to 10 foot adjacent to the northeast property line. Number 10, section 3324 rear yard, to reduce the rear yard from 25% of the lot area within AR4 and R4 area to 5%. Number 11, section 3332.15 R4 area district requirements to permit 102, 104 East 16th Avenue to not be on a separate 6,000 square foot lot, but to be on the overall combined parcel area of the development site. And last but not least, section 3332.27 rear yard, to not provide a separately identifiable existing rear yard for 102, 104 East 16th Avenue, a 2 dwelling unit building, because the 2 dwelling unit building will be on the same tax parcel as the overall 1.26 acre development site. The submission includes site plan, floor plan, perspectives, and the variance application. I will go through the updated materials here, and then we'll do the analysis. Here is the existing site plan, we've seen a few times. And here is the proposed site plan, the townhome units here along 16. Here are the perspectives of the revised design based on the last meeting. So this is that corner at Walnut 16. This is looking down 16. You see the townhome and then the existing duplex here. Here is looking towards that corner. These are the townhomes, the duplex. This is the Waldeck Avenue side, with the corner being down here. And this is the elevation that would be facing the parking lot for the neighboring building. And then we've got our floor plans here. So you can see the first floor, you have the parking coming off of Waldeck, the townhomes, and then the lobby and amenity spaces at the corner there. And here is the second floor plan. And then also included, we have the letters of support that were mentioned at the last meeting. So I went ahead and scanned those in for you all. And then we get into the zoning application, which would include those variances that we were just discussing. If those are in order. So with that, this proposal came before the UIDRB at the July, August, September, October, November, and December 2023 hearings, as well as the January, March 2024 hearings. At the most recent meeting, the board's primary concern was materiality and articulation, and using those components as a way to make the building appear smaller in scale. There was also concern about the design of the north elevation looking institutional. The recommended land use for the site is institutional. However, these properties are generally surrounded by parcels recommended for higher intensity residential use. The plan provides guidance on adaptively reusing institutional sites. As such, staff does support the higher intensity residential development on this site, as the proposal is generally consistent with plan recommendations. The plan recommends that new construction be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood in terms of size and scale. The revised option is consistent with these recommendations. Since the July 2023 meeting, the proposal has been reduced from 573 beds to 317 beds. While the proposal is more intense than the current use, staff understands the transitional nature of the site. The plan also recommends the preservation of contributing structures. The buildings on site are potentially contributing. The proposal results in the demolition of the church building, but does preserve the duplex at 102, 104 East 16th Avenue. The University District Plan also recommends open space preservation be a primary consideration for redevelopment proposals. Conserve as much open space and mature trees on site as possible. And then multifamily buildings include stoops, porches, and balconies, as well as other features to ensure they contribute to the street. The proposal maintains approximately 25% green space on site and several mature trees. In regards to the variances, staff recommends support as they are necessary to develop a proposal as negotiated, which is generally consistent with plan recommendations. Moving forward, the applicant should continue to take the University District Plan recommendations regarding materials, lighting, and landscaping into consideration as the design continues to develop. Regarding the variances, staff does recommend support and does not have a recommendation on the design as we're at a conceptual review. Thank you.
Thank you. So do we want to let them speak and then we're going to get back to the variances or?
Yes, I would.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very good. Are there anything, you want me to move that mic? Oh,
Yes,
yeah,
please.
please, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so we up? Thank you, staff. Appreciate all your time as always. So after the last meeting, we went back and regrouped and Tyler and I, talking and we had a couple of takeaways and I want to start with those takeaways in terms of what we heard and what we did about what we heard. So Daniel, since you were the new guy last time, start with you. In a good way, very positive way. The one word that you used that really kind of stuck with me was relentless. And our takeaway from that was that, the way we had our materialism, which I know was another part of the conversation, was that it was continuous around the entire part of the building with no breaks. So that is what I kind of understood as being something that was nonstop and needed to be better articulated. So what we did with that is we looked at the building, and obviously the building's got several ins and outs as we're looking at that elevation there. And we took the inside elbow parts of the building that you see in plans and made those more of a neutral element. So that we can break that elevation down, break the materials down, so that it wasn't like a wallpaper scenario where we're wallpapering the entire building all the way around with the same material, same color. And we also brought those inside elbow elements, we brought those all the way down to the ground to engage the ground. So that was a pretty major move. That was one of the two more major moves that we made on the design piece. Really, there's probably 3 or 4 big ones, but the second one was in respect to a comment that Ryan made and also staff echoed here was, how do we architecturally treat this in a way that reduces visually the scale of the building? So one of the other big design moves we made was getting rid of the portico. Those 3 main parts of the building, if you recall, the front elements had a porton or a portico that had the columns that we all talked about a couple of different times. And in perception, we felt that portico basically made the building too monumental in scale. And that was what we took away as being something that was increasing the perception of the height and mass of the building. So there again, we did the same as what we did on the inside elbow pieces. We got rid of that mass on the front of the buildings on those 3 pieces, brought the building down to the ground. So we literally engaging the ground with the building so that it was no longer on a pedestal, therefore reducing the visual scale of the building. And we thought that was a pretty major move as well. The other thing was on that particular elevation that we're looking at is we treated, if you recall, the front of the building facade was a full 5 stories. So we stepped back that top floor so that the body of the building is separated from the projecting part, the bump out, if you will. There again as a way to create all 3 of those main building elements appear to be 4-story buildings. And that was one of the things that we really kind of took to heart as well. And if you can go to, I think it's the next elevation. This one of the things that we really looked hard at, again, from various different comments that we got from various different people, the materialism. So I think this elevation, what it did for me as we went through this design and refined the design, it really reorganized the elevation when it comes to a material perspective. And I think when you look at it from the far right, which is the first townhome to the east, and let your eye move westward around the buildings, you can see that the building does appear to be more organized in its materialism. And I think that was a big thing. And then if you can go to the north elevation, because as you look at that elevation, as you walk around the building, you can also see how that north side of the elevation has gotten more organized as well. We use the 2 end pieces, the right side and the left side as kind of the bookends, and then broke up the massing of the main body of the building in the middle with those 3 architectural elements. One thing to note here on this particular elevation, the site from the parking lot of the frat house southward, the site starts to fall away, both to the south towards our building And then also, both, there's kind of a crown there, so it falls to the west and falls towards Waldeck. So you really don't, and with the intentions of, there's a fence there on that property line now. So we know we're gonna have to put a fence back. So the fence is shown there right now, so you really don't see the base of the building in this particular elevation, but the base of the building is the area of the building that's below the podium deck, which is the exterior wall of the garage, which also serves as a retaining wall in part. So it would be a consistent look with the building that was shown there, but it would be masonry type material. I think the important part is, in terms of looking at this elevation, is again, the organization, how, we broke that down and kind of simplified it a little bit and tried to get away from the institutional aspect of it and try to bring in a little bit more of a residential feel towards it. So then if you can go back to the townhome elevations, that one there. So the scale, I think, here is really important because one of the things previously that was always an issue was the height of the building. And in our last version, we did take the entire building down to 5 stories. We're still at 5 stories. But again, what I think is important to see here is that from this perspective, you don't see that building beyond, because there's these liner buildings, these liner townhomes that are there on 16th. Then there's the courtyard, that's the amenity deck for the residents. And then the body of the building that's on that north side. And then with the moves that we've made on all 3 of the larger elements that are at the corner of 16th and Waldeck, by pushing that top floor back, the scale of that top floor also gets reduced significantly. So I think in overall, what we really tried to work at, the other thing, the comment that was made by a couple different board members was the colors. So we did relook at the colors. We kind of softened them up a little bit, brought them a little bit more in character to the community. The community does have an array of different materials and colors to it. I think this is a solution that is a little bit warmer, a little bit more comfortable, and something that I think is appropriate for the community in terms of where it sits. It's still obviously, an important site. It still has a strong impact, to the site in terms of, of what it is and where it stands. But I think it fits better to the overall site. And then again, as the building's been refined and designed, I think the organization of the building has really come together. So those were the main moves that we made. Tyler, you have anything to add, or Dave?
I was just gonna say, we, at the 3 pieces, we did also remove those pitched accent roofs, which in return allowed us to reduce the height by 3 feet. So the variance request is now 63 instead of 65.
Right. I think everything else pretty much stays the same. Stephanie rattled off the stats of the building. And so we're curious on comments and opinions about where we are today.
Who would like to go first?
I'll go. I mean, I think in general, y'all have done a lot of work to get to this point. I'm good on all variances. I don't have any issues. I think the improvements to aesthetics are all in the positive direction. I think the building's warmer, the scale is down, the massing's better. I think the one facade that I think can still use a little work is the north facade facing the parking lot. You might want to introduce a 3rd color finish or element.
We talked about that, and we talked about it like there's the 3 darker pieces, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of on each side of that. We talked about a darker color there. I was a little worried about it getting too muddy with the 3rd color.
Like, I feel like the white bookends are fine. And then if you did something a little more, but when the white extends across, like, it gets to be long and big. So I think I would just look at the way you might, whether you go to something different in the indents between the towers, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe they go to something else, something to reduce the horizontality of it and just break it up.
Yeah, it's a little hard to see because of just the, where you're sitting here. But the main middle part of the building, the lighter color, is intended to be a different material, more something with a vertical rib to it, so that you do get a little bit different texture to it. You also create some shadow lines to it. So that was kind of what we determined as the appropriate approach at that particular time, to not introduce a 3rd color, because we were trying to get the material to make a change for us.
Yeah, I think the approach is right. I think you just could do more.
Okay, fair enough.
I agree with everything you really approved. I think this is improved, North Ellsworth, whichever the elevation this is.
Or north.
North, I think that the route is heading in the right direction. This is the one that could use some work to keep at this point, but I really, the deployment of the materials on the other elevations is really successful in breaking down the building, that were plants.
Well, I thank you for your word, because that drove us that way. No, it's part of the process. It's all good.
So on, like, are those all occupiable? Those are?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
those three.
So I'm curious, only the one that faces southwest has the columns that kind of march across the top. And my only comment, I just think they're too heavy. They're just, they're too massive to me. Really heavy. So but that's just me. And then if you pan down, this is really, I'm not going to say about the terminology, but I assume it's, cast stone or something, the horizontal racing stripe that divides floor 1 and 2. I feel like the top of the arch is just too close to that. It just really seems to be crowding it. So. Not deal breakers from any standpoint.
Sure. No, that's a detail, scale and proportion kind of thing. Yeah, the reasoning for the top treatment, that is the front elevation. If there is a front, I know we're on two sides kind of thing. And, so it was a way to kind of terminate the top of the building in lieu of just having the guardrail.
What's the line above it between floors 3 and 4?
Just a brick detail. Like a Rolock soldier course type thing.
In a different color of brick?
Not necessarily. I mean, it can be a different color, but.
I'm just curious because it looks so contrasting.
That's right here. Yeah, it might be just the way that it sunlights. Yeah, I mean, it can be an accent color. I have no problem introducing some accent colors like that, or whether it be literally at the windows, a header and Rolock for the sill type piece. But I wouldn't want to get too carried away with, the detailing of it,
I
but.
was curious about that element, that's all.
Yeah.
Or would you prefer that just to go away? Do you think that's making it too busy? Breaking it up, too many times vertically?
I think it's okay to break it up vertically.
Steph, can you go to the two slides down from that, please? So did you consider, I'm curious why the two more easterly, the first two townhomes that are adjacent to the existing to remain, those are brick. Did you consider doing brick, sided brick? I mean, going back and forth, because there are two that look, well, actually the brick, so is the brick in the gable in the center one?
Yeah.
Okay, it goes all the way up.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the facades are the same. It's just the material that varies.
I think for me on that, I would like to see a little bit more difference between those townhomes. I mean, that just, it's like the gables that, like, I don't know, I feel like it's just kind of playing with where that brick is, and I think whether even the hardy panel in the center could be a slightly different color or something. That's just my thought, that they're not all really just the same where that brick goes.
Well, the materials are different, but the facade itself is the same, other than on the far right one, the porch is different on that one. There's a larger porch on that particular design.
I guess maybe you're saying all those bricks are different?
No, the window placements on all three of those are the same. So it's the materials that change.
I mean,
it's the same brick, the same party color.
Correct. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
I just said, and that centerpiece is all the brown hardy in there. I just feel like there could be a little bit of
some more variety.
Sure. I mean, it seems to me that the center portion is where, if you want to make them look different, then, because that is literally identical on all three, and it seems like that's the opportunity to do something different. And maybe it's only the center one that does something different there. I mean, I don't know what it ought to be, but that seems like the most obvious thing to kind of separate them a little bit visually.
I do think the porch, the variation in the porch is a good decision to have.
Well, that is a direction, in the sense that you kind of treat them similarly, or do they all, I use the word drastically, but that's the exaggeration, different?
Sometimes like you can change the porch look just by the roof. You have shed roofs, you could put a hip on one of them. You've seen that done up and down all of these, streets. The porch is exactly the same, but then the roof is slightly different.
Sure.
That might be a way, just enough to give it a little bit of identity
Mhm.
to one of the
Just a
townhouses.
slight streetscape variation.
Yeah, and as far as the colors, I don't disagree that, a little bit more difference might be, but I mean that we talked about those twin houses, right?
Mhm.
And they're the same but different, but you see the articulation as being slightly different. I'm happy either way, honestly, on that. If you go back to the front facade, um, I guess I'm having a little trouble with the stark white with the brick color. I'd like it to be muted down a little bit. I feel like that, just to me feels a little too contrasting in the color. And then when you turn around the corner and go to the north facade, I'm in total agreement too, that if we could just break up those pieces a little bit. I think the shade and shadows might help you, but you're on the north, so you're never gonna get it from the sun.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, right? Because you could really use that to your advantage, but on the north side, you're not gonna get it. So I think you're gonna have to consider a third color to help break that
Sure.
massing up a bit. And again, these are nitpicking things. So I appreciate the fact you took the gables off the top level. I think that really helps you a lot. And I really appreciate all of the comments being incorporated into this last submission.
The color's not as white as what that's making it look.
Yeah,
If you look at the print color, it does have a little bit more of a tone to it.
yeah, tone.
So, print,
Yeah, it's just
yeah. And then the lighting, how you do the rendering.
I would love to see like samples of it, because then you can really get it.
We had that in the last meeting, that was in our package, but since we kind of tossed those out, started over.
Okay, yeah, I get it. But you know how it is, print material and
Yes.
digital material never looks like the real thing, so.
Yes, understand.
We can easily get physical samples
Back
as
in the
well.
day, we had material sample board. I mean, that really.
Yeah.
I really do like that.
Yeah.
I like to touch things. But thank you.
No, thank you.
Anyone else? Additional comments? No?
Variances.
Yes. Any commentary on variances?
It's a different subject, but one that's been discussed a good deal, and just an update. Has there been any follow-up on the architectural material from the building in terms of the
The church building?
Yes.
I don't know if you've had any phone calls or.
Yeah, I mean, we're still continuing to outreach and I guess generate our pool of potential people that we would, donate the materials to. I guess in the nature of time, we would probably want to get in there sometime soon and then get them out of there because the building is dilapidated, it's empty, vacant. So we want to probably get in there sooner rather than later and at least take them down, store it. That way we can preserve it.
Inventory them.
Yeah.
Yeah, take pictures, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because somebody's gonna want to see those in detail.
I mean, I would just hate for somebody to break in there and damage that, so.
So there's nothing definitive in terms of this group is taking them or buying them or whatever, but that is still a commitment to the project.
Yes.
Even though she's no longer on the board, I think that Katie Jones probably may have connections in those Northland sort of institutions of interest. And I would suggest that you get back in touch with her and see if she can be of help. And I'm sure she'd be this is sort of her idea.
Sure,
Yeah, just to be of help.
Yeah, we have looked, quietly at some architectural salvage, and I know salvage is not the right word, but the preservation aspect, there are companies that will take special materials like that and repurpose them. So that is something that, we're looking into as well.
I know she was also speaking of the possibility of an institutional donation.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, that would be the ideal. Finding a home for them would be the best thing.
Variances.
I'll make a motion to approve variances.
I second it.
That was a motion by Mr. Mather, seconded by Ms. Gunzelman. Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Ms. Gunzelman,
Yes,
Mr. Reeds,
Yes.
Mr. Sublette,
Yes.
Mr. Samansky,
Yes.
and Mr. Mather.
Yes.
Motion carries.
You're good,
Right.
Okay.
Well, we appreciate it.
Okay.
I know it's taken some time, but again, collaboration is very much appreciated and we look forward to continuing as we work forward.
I don't mean to be negative, but please don't let the passage there of the variances slow down the issue of the architectural elements. They're not.
Absolutely. I think it actually expedited, truthfully. So,
I hope so.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Dave, we.
Oh, no, we're good.
Okay.
Thanks for your time.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Staff improvement.
So there were three. One was for a solar array on a roof that you're not going to see from the ground. One was a renewal for one that expired. And then one was for a temporary tent for an event.
Yeah, they're fine.
Lovely, thank you. So you just need a motion to adopt those into the record.
I move to adopt.
Second.
That was a motion by Mr. Fleming, seconded by Mr. Samansky. Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Ms. Gunzelman,
yes.
Mr. Reeds,
Yes.
Mr. Sublette,
Yes.
Mr. Samansky,
Yes.
and Mr. Mather.
Yes.
Motion carries. Prior to us adjourning, I would just like to encourage you all, if you have time, since we were so efficient tonight, to pop over to the Zone In Gallery. I'm happy to go over and give you all a tour of the space since you're already here. But other than that, I don't.
I'll do it.
Yeah,
Sure.
wonderful, would love it. But other than that, I don't have anything, so we can go ahead and adjourn.
Adjourned.
Wonderful. Wonderful work, team.
There.
So, yeah, perfect. I mean, I guess